Welcome back to the conversation in News Central Television. We now move away from development in South Africa to Nigeria, where the Nigerian Labour Congress is calling for a strike, a nationwide strike from Wednesday next week, following an earlier ultimatum issued by the Central Working Committee members of the NLC last week, criticizing the cash swap policy of the federal government. President of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Joe Ajero, also directed affiliate unions to be on standby for picketing exercises across all branches of the Central Bank of Nigeria nationwide.
Now, Ajero said the decision to picket CBN branches became pivotal due to the hardship workers were undergoing in search of cash and government's failure to deal with the situation. Recall that in October 2022, the Central Bank of Nigeria announced its decision to redesign the naira banknotes with the approval of the president. The circulation of the new naira notes began in December with the January 31 deadline for the old naira notes. But due to the hardship experienced by Nigerians, this deadline was further extended till February 10. A lingering Supreme Court expurgation order resolved that the old 500 and 1,000 naira notes would be in use till December 31, 2023. And joining us for this conversation, we have Biodun Shomi. He's a public affairs analyst. He joins us from Lagos, Nigeria. We also have Comrade Amechi Asuguni, is the former deputy president of the Nigeria Labour Congress. He joins us from Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us on the conversation.
It's my pleasure.
Welcome.
All right, so Comrade Asuguni, I would like to begin with you. And from the present NLC chairman, he said workers have been directed to stay at home because people cannot eat and workers can no longer go to the office. Now, do you think that the Labour Congress is justified in its decision for a nationwide strike at this time?
Yeah, good evening once again. And Nigeria Labour Congress is an institution of the masses, a centered organization that defends the right of workers. It may interest you to know that any economic policy that affects the people of Nigeria affects the workers most injuriously. And as we speak, the monetary policy suffered by Nigerians almost 2 months now is something that has eaten deep into workers' income. And I believe Nigeria Labour Congress as an institution must actually keep to term by giving the directive they have issued out. If they don't do this, then Nigerians will be surprised, because I think why they delayed it was because of the election, so that it doesn't also create problem in trying to solve a problem. But I must tell you, the issue of economic policy actually affect Nigerian working people, and that is on the center field of Nigeria Labour Congress, and they are right when they say they are angry.
Thank you, Comrade Amechi. I'd like to bring Mr. Biodun Shomi into the conversation. The Supreme Court had since ordered the use of the old 500 naira and 1,000 naira notes to circulate with the new note till December 31st this year. Why does the cash scarcity seem to persist in various parts of the country in spite of this judgment and the circular issued by the Central Bank of Nigeria's governor?
Yes, one thing I must first mention is the fact that the action of the Nigerian Labour Congress is belated. I am a labor activist and head the Center for Labor Development. When workers were dying, when Nigerian poor people were dying because they could not pay hospital bills, people could not afford to eat, we saw old pensioners crying on national TV that they could not access the money they deposited in the bank. The Nigerian Labour Congress was busy supporting a particular candidate in that election, and they made that very clear and open. I don't have
Mr. Biodun Shomi, I would like to permit me to interrupt you for a second. Just a few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to talk to the chairperson of the Lagos State chapter of the NLC, and she told me categorically that the reason why the NLC did not want to take action then was it would look like they were truncating the democratic exercise because it was in the middle of an electioneering period, and calling for a nationwide strike then would be counterproductive. So what do you have to say to that? Is that reasonable enough excuse?
It's quite amazing. In my history, look, both in Nigeria and abroad, I was a Rail Maritime Transport Union representative in UK. People are dying. No, poor people could not access food. I have never heard of a situation like that the trade union will fold its hands. Okay, that's gone. We've gone through that. Now, we are beginning to see some respite. As I'm speaking to you, I have just withdrawn money from the ATM. Why is it now, after the election in which Labour leadership pitched tents behind the candidate, and the candidate lost the election? Why now, when people are feeling relief, money is beginning to flow into the economy, and that is when the NLC now chooses to embark on strike. I understand the internal politics of NLC under Waba, and I know that with Ajeru, things are bound to change. I know we cannot hold him responsible for the inaction of the past NLC leadership in this matter. But in my view, I don't think this is the right time to embark on it, because money is beginning to flow into the system. We are beginning to see cash being withdrawn. As I'm speaking to you, I have withdrawn substantial amount of money. There's an improvement in the situation, but not good enough. I must admit, not good enough, but I don't think it warrants, another disruption to the economy. If you bear in mind that so many businesses have collapsed, small, medium enterprises collapsed. Yeah. So many businesses have lost so much money. Embarking on a strike at this point in time will further worsen the economic situation, in my view. But I fully, and I will always fully support the trade union. But on this very occasion, I don't think this is the right time to do it. The only person who can explain why we are in this situation is Godwin Emefiele. We all know that 2.8 trillion naira was withdrawn from the economy, and the CBN admitted to printing 400 billion with a view to force the rest of us, to go cashless. Now, the reality of the matter, to answer the question you first asked, is that since the CBN decision, judgment on this matter, the CBN has no choice but to now order for more money to be printed. And that will not come overnight. One, the Nigerian Minting Printing Company will have to order the paper and the ink to be used. And then it will take some time before they can produce enough money. I'm not defending Emefiele. I felt he behaved highly irresponsibly, in this very matter. He did not consider the plight of Nigerians or the businesses that collapsed. That is the truth. But now that the Supreme Court has resolved this matter, and we are beginning to see an improvement in money supply within the economy, at least to the tune of 1 trillion naira, we need to have more money in the economy. But the best way to help businesses and poor people is not by embarking on another strike action at this very critical juncture. When we are supposed to have had it, we didn't do that. So I don't think it's totally necessary at this time.
All right, thank you so much, Biodun. People are also wondering, because we're also seeing information from the CBN having a meeting with the Nigerian Labour Congress, if because of the call for the strike, we're having more circulation of the naira notes. I'm sure you answer that later. But I want Comrade Amechi to answer this question, which is the lingering question a lot of Nigerians have also had. That is the reason for this naira notes redesign. That there have been series of condemnations raised against the government on the redesign of the naira note and the deadline placed on the old naira notes. There was a back and forth between January 31 deadline to February 10 deadline, and subsequently saying that the old naira notes will also be used with the new naira notes. Now, do you actually fault this initial decision of the Central Bank of Nigeria, or even the federal government, to have the naira redesign policy? Or do you believe that the government gave credible reasons for this naira swap?
I think the policy is good to have policy, just like Emefiele was making effort to introduce. But the unfortunate thing we saw, and we're still seeing, is the effect that it was too sudden. 3 months is not enough to educate Nigerians about currency change, to the extent that you are not just educating them, but you are withdrawing the old one from being valid. And that was the beginning of this trouble. till now, even not until the Supreme Court judgment, the economy was not safe. So we never supported CBN decision to have gone in that direction. There was no public hearing as to getting people's views, opinion of rural leaders, opinion of National Assembly that represent the people. I think it was just targeting the political class, not knowing the effect it will actually bear on the masses. That was actually, that took him unaware, and that was why you saw that they were going further back, and the president had to, at the point, approve the use of old 200 naira notes. That was not enough. So their consistent interest was just to stop vote buying, unknowingly to him that he did not even release the first new note with guideline. He released the first new note, allowing the first new note to go to the hands of the same people he was making policy against. Unfortunately, the few of them arrested the trillion or the number of naira he said he printed earlier, only for him to know or see that the currency was no more in circulation, but in the hands of few. So that is to tell you, even the days of election, for some of you that participated, you could see that politicians didn't complain of cash. They have the same new note that is not in circulation was fully in their hand. So Emefiele did not get it right. He released a policy without a guideline, and now people have gotten the money to themselves. He started saying ATM should not dispense more than 20,000, whereas there's no money to even give at that time. So the policy wasn't well thought of. It wasn't well thought for, and now, but the idea was brilliant. Unfortunately, it came late, and the system of implementation was very poor, because whatever you do, if you don't consider the masses, and when I talk about the masses, I'm not talking about I'm not even relating to urban masses that are very close to media. I'm talking about the rural areas where you have a huge number of illiterate parents that have no knowledge about going to bank. There are local governments in Nigerians that have no bank. I have one in Delta State, a local government, there is no bank. So how do you advise such people or educate them to begin to now queue on opening an account? The process of getting an illiterate to open an account within these 2-3 months was very unrealistic, and that was why it failed. And now you can see even the December deadline may still fail, because they are still quiet. And if they are quiet in this nature, we are going to experience the same thing. You can't release a policy without a backup orientation. Otherwise, we'll get to November now, and people start crying, why again, why? Because now they just said, use old note. No message as we speak. And then by December, you now say you want to stop the old note again. There will be crisis. So for the issue of NSC not coming on time does not arise, because even my brother is also telling you that it needs time for money to be in circulation. All I will say is that for the fact that the deputy governor of CBN visited NSC yesterday, the interaction was that they are going to make money available. And if they do so between now and Monday next week, I believe NSC may see reason to suspend this plan action, because the action is not just meant to register that we are going on strike. It's to make the money available. And if the money becomes available, action becomes not necessary. So I am believing that the possibility of calling it off before suspending it is actually ample enough.
Thank you, Amechi. Biodo Amechi said, brilliant idea, poor execution. And like you said earlier, the cash scarcity had led to the destruction of bank properties, a hike in POS operators rates, and the persistent downturn of bank mobile apps, all of which are believed to have wiped about $20 billion from the aggregate GDP. Now, how badly did this cash crunch get in terms of affecting businesses? And would you suggest that the NLC, instead of embarking on a strike action, should they look for a mechanism to force the federal government to pay compensation to businesses that have been affected negatively as a result of this policy? If you look at poultries and so many other businesses, everyone is counting their losses. So would you suggest such a move or a policy to compensate those who have suffered grossly from this, or it's it's a pipeline dream. It's something that can never see the light of day in Nigeria.
Yes, I fully align with what Comrade Amici, said. It's quite very important for us to look at the plight of our own people. The agricultural sector was severely hit. Yeah. I can tell you of a situation where people need to harvest. They couldn't get the cash to pay to those to do the harvest. And many of the maize, they lost a lot of maize in the field. So many people are affected one way or the other, manufacturing companies and all that. And the fact of the matter is any responsive government must address the problems faced by the small, medium enterprises. And it's not only that, there were people who lost their lives in this process. In my view, Emefiele at a point in time must be made to account for his own policies. Because if you look at the Chapter 2 of the Nigerian Constitution, particularly the section dealing with fundamental directives and derivative principles of state policy, which clearly stated that the welfare and the security of Nigerians is the primary purpose of government. And since they came out with a policy that devastated everybody, that brought the CBN into the realms of politics, which should never have been, as a regulator, as an apex bank of the bankers, because otherwise I don't know what is the business of CBN in trying to curb vote buying. Is it in the CBN Act that the CBN Act should curb vote buying? Is that not the EFCC and ICPC responsibility? Anything relating to election is INEC. So what has it got to do with him? At the end of the day, the federal government, whether this government or the new regime, needs to look at the plight of Nigerians and see how to ameliorate, their sufferings. And I would fully align with Nigerian Labour Congress if that is put on the agenda, to be discussed with the incoming administration.
All right, thank you so much, Biodun. Now, quickly, Comrade Amici. Now, if the NLC does go on strike, he talked about 43 affiliate unions who are supposed to join the strike. How badly will this affect the economy with the cash crunch that we have currently?
I think federal government should do everything possible to avert this proposed strike action, because we know the strategy that has been deployed with what I have gathered is such that there will be full compliance. And to that effect, is going to further jeopardize a lot of economic growth we have sustained till now. We're already crying foul of the weakness of the government of today. So if we're going to 2 months to hand over government and surviving strike action of Nigerian Labour Congress is going to be a very big challenge. And for me, it's going to affect the economy drastically. It's going to may also further even suffer the people we intend to protect in the short run, and then thereby giving a guarantee. Because one of the reasons we enforce this strike action is not just necessarily that we don't know the impact on the people, but because we want the government to be accountable. We want the government to know that when we say democracy is the government of the people, they should consider the people before taking action. And when people say they are suffering, federal government should give a thought.
All right, thank you so much, Comrade Amici Asudini, and of course, Biodun Shomi. We do hope that the federal government will do what is necessary to ameliorate this scarcity and cash crunch going on in Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Thank you.